Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video, we'll be reviewing tips for the removal and replacement of the spark plugs and coils on this 2024 Chevy Malibu with the 1.5 liter engine. If you find my tips to be helpful, please like, subscribe, and comment. Now let's get started. The spark plugs are located beneath the engine cover, so we're going to have to remove that as our first step. Using our T27 hex tool, loosen up the screw right here. Okay. And then we're going to loosen up the oil cap. Okay. And carefully lift up on the cover while holding the screw in place. And there you go. And I just like to leave the oil cap right there. Set that off to the side. Next, we're going to remove this insulator. And so it kind of wraps around some of the components back there. So gently tug up on it carefully. And there you go. Just moves right out of the way. Now, what you have before you is an inline 4-cylinder engine, and here are the 4 coils, 1, 2, 3, 4, and beneath each one of those coils is a spark plug, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, for demonstration purposes, I'll be removing the spark plug and coil at this location. So you might ask, what are some of the symptoms associated with faulty coils or spark plugs? And the symptoms are, you get a rough idle, misfire, and a whole series of codes that will trigger a check engine light. And those codes are P1305, P1310, P1315, P1351, 3159, 60, and 61. What do these parts do, right? So what's the whole purpose of a spark plug? Well, the spark plug ignites the fuel mixture. Just very simple. So what does a coil do? The coil transforms the battery voltage to a much higher voltage to the spark plugs so that you get a very strong ignition of the fuel mixture. So let's quickly go over our supply list. We already know that we need a T27 hex tool, but you'll also need a 10mm socket, 15mm socket, a ratchet with extensions, flat tip screwdriver, rubber hose, and spark plugs and coils as needed. Please see other items in the description below. So let's go ahead and get started with the removal of the coil. I'm going to challenge myself today and take off the most difficult location, and then just so you know, all of the other locations can be removed in a similar manner. I remove things in levels, okay? So the first thing I'm gonna do is remove anything that's closest to me. And so I can just kind of visibly look and see that, yeah, this hose probably needs to be removed. So I'm just gonna slide that off. And then I can see that this is a pretty tight connection here because I'm gonna have to get to this location. This wire looks really short. So I'm going to lift up on the locking mechanism for this cam position sensor. Use my flat tip screwdriver, pull up on that lock, squeeze it back in and pull it out. So now I see that this is holding me up. This is a tight wire here. And so what you want to do is go back here, and there's a little catch. Just very carefully twist small flat tip screwdriver, and you can just slide that off. And now we're making some pretty good progress. I still have this little wire bundle over the top here. How am I gonna deal with that? And so I look and I see that there's a gray clamp, and it just has like a connection that just kind of slides in, but you can pull it out. And so I'm gonna use my flat tip screwdriver again to wiggle in there and just slide that connection out. Just pull it out, put a little force behind it, and it pulls right out. I think I have enough room to access this spark plug at this location right now. So now, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna unlock the electrical connector for the coil, get in here with my flat tip screwdriver, push that up, and I'm gonna squeeze down right there on that little black tab, and then pull it out, okay? Now you can use your thumb or you can use your screwdriver. There you go. Works either way. Looking for my 10mm socket with an extension to loosen up this coil. And so I had already loosened it up, and so it's gonna come off really easy. There we go. I'm gonna pull out the coil very carefully, straight out, okay? And sometimes I'll even blow in there to remove any of the heavy dust. Or if you have compressed air, blow in there before removing this coil, because it does have a dust cover. And if you have a lot of dust on your engine, when you lift up on that dust cover, you could allow some of the dirt to fall in there. So if you have compressed air, go ahead and use it. Using 2 hands, pulling straight up. Trying not to shake any dust down into that area. I'm gonna pull it out. And there you go. There's your coil right there. And I like to inspect my coil right when I take it out. And so from top to bottom, I could look and see, this is probably some sort of resistor or amplifier. You see that the surface is extremely smooth. There's no bumps, it's not bulging. These prongs are nice and straight, so there's no issues with the electrical connector. Looking at the bottom here, looking at the shaft, there's no bulges, there's no cracks. This is the dust cover. The dust cover's in place. Moving around to the bottom, I look down the barrel and I see that there is dielectric grease, which is a really good thing. So kudos to GM for having dielectric grease on the tip of this coil. And I look at the electronic pickup down in the barrel, which is usually some sort of spring, and it does not look corroded. And so this is fine and ready to go. So I'm just going to set it off to the side. Next, I'm going to grab my 15mm deep socket. I put a swivel on it because the spark plugs are at an angle. And I'm going to drop it down there and there like that. I could use a longer extension, but this one's fine. Make sure I'm going the right way. Normally once I have it loose, I just loosen it up by hand like this. You'll loosen it, loosen it, loosen it. And what you'll find is it'll rise and then fall, rise and then fall, rise and then fall. Once it starts doing that, that's when you know it's ready to be pulled out. Okay, let's see if it comes out. No, of course it doesn't. And this is where my rubber hose comes in. My brother-in-law told me about this trick several years ago, and I've been using it ever since. Just slide the rubber hose down onto the spark plug and pull it out. And there you have it. There's your spark plug. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about spark plugs. There's plenty of videos on spark plugs, so I invite you to look at those other videos. What I do want to point out is that this is an Iridium spark plug, and it's in really good shape. There is some fouling here, so there's obviously some issues going on with the engine, which is not throwing a check engine light at this time, but you can see there's quite a bit of carbon built up on the tip of that spark plug. So there is something going on there. There is no anti-seize, and there's a little bit of rust here. So that's something you might want to consider if you're in an area where it snows for 1 or 2 months per year. I advise that you would put some anti-seize here before you install this spark plug. Where I live, it's pretty arid, and I don't typically use anti-seize. Okay, moving forward, this is the porcelain insulator. And you can see that there's no cracks here. It's in really good shape. I'm gonna go ahead and read off the number for you. So this is GM Spark Plug 554900097R6. If this was a brand new spark plug, what I would do is, one, make sure that the gap is correct. If you look at your screen, I'll have the gap measurement that's required for this spark plug. If this was a brand new spark plug, what I would do is double check the gap on the spark plug. Also, what I would do is check for any cracks here, and how I would do that is I would put dielectric grease on here and then look for any cracks. Because if there are any cracks in this porcelain insulator, you have to chuck this spark plug out because it's no good. Once I confirm that there's no cracks, I can go ahead and reinstall this spark plug. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that at this time. Slide it on. Using the hose, it allows you to put the spark plug into the hole and get the initial thread started, just like that, okay? Now I'm coming back in with my 15mm socket. Tighten it down. Okay. Next. Okay, that's snug. And now I'm going to get my torque wrench and torque it down to the specified torque setting. Okay, take a look at your screen. You can see the torque for this particular spark plug. And there you go. Next step is to reinstall the coil. Carefully sliding it down. You want to press that coil in place firmly. You do not want to rely on the screw to pull the coil in place. Okay, there you go. Now you have your coil screw. Go. Get your 10mm socket. Tighten it down. Just needs to be snug. Okay. Working down in levels. We're going to make this connection here on the coil. So we look at the female connector, make sure that the rubber gasket is not deformed, slide it into place, listen for the click, I heard the click, lock it down, moving down in levels, I'm going to pull these wires over. I'm going to slide that onto that black right here. You're going to slide the back of this onto that. There you go. Hang that right there. Got this hanging out here. Just going to push it back into place. Look at the female connector. Look at the gasket. The gasket is not deformed. Make the connection at the cam shaft position sensor. Click and lock it down. Well folks, that wraps up this video on the removal and replacement of the spark plugs and coils on this 2024 Chevy Malibu with the 1.5 liter engine. If you found my tips to be helpful, please like and subscribe. And until next time, drive defensively.